Bob Pascal with a Groundhog Day edition of Bob's Bullpen. Did anybody see, did Phil see a shadow this morning? I don't know.
No, he didn't. Not in Pennsylvania.
Did you buy that? 6 more weeks of bad weather?
I'll tell you about Easter Sunday. Right, I believe it or not.
But did you see your shadow this morning?
I haven't seen my shadow in a long time. I've been eating a lot. Our usual suspects today, Ryan Layton. Scoop's here. He's got his slides and his local news, and he's here. He's got it all set today. And the professor, Tom Nickerson, who's going to have one of his ridiculous features. I asked you to do something intelligent on the Super Bowl, and all we got was recipes for
tonight. It's complete intelligence. No question about it.
It sounds like counterintelligence. Well, okay.
Well, it could be. I had to spy a little bit for this.
And a special guest today, Dan Welch, sitting to my right, the principal at Bullpen Region High School. And I got to tell you guys, Dan called this morning and said he wasn't feeling good. Called back to and said, I'm gonna tough it out. Tough guy.
Give it a shot. I'd help Bob out.
He helps me
all the time.
One of the reasons I asked Dan to come by, in addition to being the principal of the high school, I know he's a sports enthusiast and had a college career as a ball player himself. Dan, tell us about yourself.
I don't know if career would be the verbiage I'd use, but maybe stint would be more appropriate. So.
3 years at the high school? 3rd year?
This is my 4th year. 4th year at Bullpen Region High School.
4 years
Absolutely.
at high school.
Time flies when you're having fun, you know.
Tell us about yourself. Where'd you go to school? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in northern Maine, a small town called Mattawamkeag. It's about 65 miles north of Bangor. About 800 people, 1 stop sign, no stop lights, and went to a K-5 school with 60 kids in it.
So when you came to Bullpen, you were coming to the big city.
Well, you know, I moved around a little bit after. So I went to high school at Norfolk Academy, which is in Lincoln. It's a good-sized Class C school. They hover between C and B. So. Had a great experience there. Went to the University of Maine, Machias. Played a couple of years of basketball there. Got my BA in history and minor in teaching, and went to work at Washington Academy in East Machias. Taught social studies, math, gym, coached football, basketball, softball, pretty much anything. You know, and left there as the assistant head of school, and never been to Bullpen in my life until I interviewed for the job, and went to the school, loved it.
Must have done a good job.
I don't know. They called me back, you know. It was a nice call to get back, you know.
I got to tell you, I go to the high school a lot because I'm fortunate enough to get calls to substitute up there doing a few other things. And Dan's great. First of all, his door's always open. He's very, very approachable. He'll always listen. But you know, he installs discipline too. He's got a balance. It's great. Tell us about your basketball career in college.
Oh, well, I mean,
what kind of program did they have?
Well, I went to UMaine Machias, small college. Played in the MAC, Maine Athletic Conference, against schools like Husson, St. Joe's, University of New England, and it was interesting. I had a ball, had a great time, met some great guys. Had some good coaches, and it's funny though, you don't realize, or a lot of people don't realize the difference between small-time high school Maine basketball and small-time Maine college basketball. I remember, high school games, we run out, about like Bullpen, you might have 5, 6, 7, 800,000 people in the gym, just fanatical, especially when you're playing your rivals, things like that. It was great, wonderful experience. You get to college and you run out and there's 4 people in the gym. But the competition is phenomenal because, most high school teams have 2 or 3 really talented ball players. When I got to college, I realized all those 2 or 3 really talented ball players were all on the team now. So, being 6'3", 6'4", I found out that guy 6'9", 6'10" was turned out I was a lot better setting picks and rebounding than I was scoring.
Being a varsity player at a college level, what effect did it have on your life? What did you get out of it?
Well, you know what? I guess it made me get serious about school. I'll be honest. When I was in high school, I was not the best student. I was decent, but I didn't find my niche. And I got to college and I loved playing ball, but there came a point too where I realized, and I said, this is not going to be my livelihood. Maybe I ought to spend a few less hours, shooting foul shots and maybe crack the books a little bit more. And but it taught you a lot about time management. I think a lot of kids struggle with time management, especially when they first get to college. And you got to plan your day out. You got to you got to be a serious student, and you got to have a lot of dedication because it's just for love of the game.
What part should sports play in the development of a high school kid? If he or she is good enough to play a varsity sport?
Well, I think, regardless of how good a student is, I mean, their talent level is really not the most important thing. I mean, there's studies that show that students that are involved in extracurricular activities are going to be more successful in school. They're going to have more engagement in the school. They're going to have a better time in the community. They're going to take their studies more seriously. It's an anchor for kids, and it teaches them life lessons. I mean, teaches them about teamwork, teaches them about hard work, teaches them about, you know, maybe they can't go to the dance Friday night because they got practice first thing the next morning and they got to crack the book. So, you know, and there's nothing like camaraderie with a team, you know, that team nucleus. So I think any extracurricular, doesn't have to be sports, doesn't have to be football, basketball, drama, music, band, student government, any of those things that help create a connection with the student and adults in the school outside of the classroom can be powerful.
When you're selecting a coach, and correct me if is the baseball coaching job still open, Dan?
No, we've hired a baseball coach.
Oh, did you? Tell us about
Brett Barter. Brett Barter has been hired as our baseball coach, so we're very excited to have him on board. He can do a great job.
When the school district is looking into hiring a coach at the varsity level, what criteria is being looked at? What's important in hiring a coach? What qualities?
I want good people in the school. You know, I want good people that I know are gonna treat the kids the way we all want our kids treated. You know, I think, you know, since I became a parent, I have a lot better perspective now on kids in sports. When I was younger, you know, in my early 20s, I thought all about you win. You play to win, you play to win, you play to win. Now that I have kids, I think to myself, you know, I want the kids in my school and on those teams to have the same experience I would want my kids to have. So I look for good people that are going to instill values, that are going to model appropriate behavior, are going to model enthusiasm for the sport. I look for people that have knowledge of the game. I mean, that's important. They need to be able to teach techniques. They need to be able to teach how to play. And you always want to win. I mean, winning's a lot more fun than losing. But at the end of the year, at the end of the season, when the athletic director, Alan Crocker, and I sit down and talk about a coach, wins and losses have almost zero bearing on our discussions on that coach's ability. You know, we look at, did the kids have a good experience? Did they feel good about it? You know, did they play hard? Did they represent the school well? Those are all the things that we look for, you know. It should be about having a good experience for the kids. It's about the kids.
I have to tell you that I had some experience with a 6th grade team that Dan coached here at the Y. And they teach great lessons just along the lines of what you're talking about, Dan. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, last week your team lost the game by 1 point or 2 points.
Lost by a couple points. It was a nail biter.
But you had them, they were presenting the trophy to the winning team, and you had your team line up and probably appreciate the team that won it. Those are great lessons to learn.
Yeah, well, sportsmanship, you know, sportsmanship's paramount. You know, I know when our field hockey team last year won the sportsmanship award for the conference, for the whole class actually, so they were the first Class C recipient for the sportsmanship award from the Maine Principal Association. I had as much pride in that as if they'd won a gold ball. You know, I mean, to me, people around the state notice that our kids are good kids that represent themselves appropriately, and that gives me an enormous, you know, sense of pride in our school and our community.
In the 20 years that I've been up here, the community has been supportive of our athletic programs, athletic teams. The Boosters Club does great things and so forth and so on. We will attend to the game. Is there a worry that they put too much emphasis on W's and L's and not on the things you're talking about?
Yeah, I don't know that. I don't know that I would say that there's too much of an emphasis. I mean, everybody's different. You know, you have different pockets maybe that focus on different things. I have found in the time I've been here that the community is enormously supportive of our schools and our students. You know, I remember being here for the first 6 months and somebody told me, they said, you know, Dan, once people in this community believe and figure out that you're here for the benefit of the kids and that you're here to benefit kids and advocate for kids, they'll be on your side. And I have found that to be true day in and day out. You know, we have tremendous resources in this community. I'm in awe of all the resources our kids have to their disposal. I mean, the YMCA is a wonderful example. I mean, you know, the fact that the kids have a place to go when school's out and practice is over, where there's supervision, there's an emphasis on values, where it's a place where they can come and belong. And it's just tremendous. So I don't feel that there's an overemphasis on wins and W's and losses. You know, everybody likes to win, but you know, again, I think people come out to support our kids, and we appreciate that.
Tom, you might not know this better than I. The lights that went up on our football field, what's that, been 7 or 8 years ago?
That actually occurred between September 11th, 2001, September 11th, 2002.
Wasn't that done completely donated labor and materials at cost?
Materials and you know, the community, once you ask this community to come together and be behind something, as Dan said, it's unbelievable what they can do. That actually, kind of stealing my thunder, that's part of my,
I don't want to do that, 'cause we look forward to you.
I think you've been peaking, Judge.
No, I have my integrity, I don't do that, Tommy, I like to, you know, I'm sorry, you started to ask something, I interrupted you, Ron.
Yeah, I wanted to interject. I had a couple questions for Dan myself. And it's regarding the changes that have gone on at the school since I was there about a decade ago and how it goes on now. When I was in school, there was no drug policy. There's no drug and alcohol policy. Do you think that the current drug and alcohol policy dissuades kids at all from joining sports? Has that lowered the participation?
I don't think it does at all, Brian, actually. I think kids want to be part of something where there are expectations. Kids, it's amazing, we don't give them enough credit sometimes. If we set the expectations for them and give them a voice in creating the expectations for themselves, they'll have buy-in. So when we crafted our last athletic pledge, it was over the last spring and into the summer, we had a group of parents, coaches, and students all give input to that, you know, what's working, what's not working. Those policies are never perfect, you know, but I feel like we have a really good one right now that, you know, still has consequences, but still recognizes that we want kids participating as much as possible. So I don't think it's changed. I don't think it's changed participation. Participation in different sports is cyclical. You know, a few years back, our cross country team didn't have a lot of participants. They've had some success. They've got a great coach. All of a sudden, the numbers are really up. You know, and so it just cycles like that. Sometimes in a small school, different classes really take on their own personality, and so you might have a class that's really into basketball, or baseball, or field hockey, and so, you know, it ebbs and flows.
Okay. Another question, going back to the drug policy, I think the big change, you did change it from the 2011 to the 2012 drug policy.
That's correct.
I was going through them, looked at the changes. One of them was you removed one of the clauses that I guess encouraged kids to, I don't want to call it rat, but bring forth a teammate that's been an offender, but you took that out. Was there a reason why you took that out at the pledge?
Well, that came largely in part to some student feedback that we got, saying, you know, they felt that we were putting kids in a really tough situation where they could be liable if they didn't come and, in essence, you know, tell us what maybe some of their peers had done wrong. You know, they felt, and I can understand where they're coming from, that the emphasis should be on, you know, your own personal ownership of your actions. That's why there's actually a benefit in that policy now. If self-admission, you come in and you say, you know, listen, I made a mistake, and I want to make up for that, and I want to, you know, go through the process now. There's actually, you know, there's a benefit for them to that one time. You know, they just didn't feel, and again, I understand where they're coming from, that, you know, holding them responsible for their peers' actions maybe wasn't just. So that was the rationale.
Okay, great. That does it for my question.
You know, things have changed. Let me ask you if it makes the coach's job more difficult. We see professional athletes and college athletes, for that matter, on television with, I'll call it the nonsense that goes on, the dances in the end zone, the self-aggrandizement, the individualism, the emphasis on place, and less of a respect for authority that we used to see, particularly in basketball and football. Does that make a coach's job tougher when kids are seeing this? To teach them to do the right thing?
I think it does. I mean, when you look at, you know, their role models, they have role models that are professional athletes and whose behavior doesn't necessarily reflect what the behavior we want in our student athletes. So, you know, I find that, you know, the student athletes, or the professional athletes that I always gravitate towards are the ones that rarely are in the spotlight. Things like that. You know, Peyton Manning, I think, is a great example, whereas I always cheer against him when he's playing against New England. But other than that, I think that's a class act guy that, you know, gives back to the community and is a solid stand-up person. So I think it does make the coach's job more difficult. I think kids have a lot more options now than they used to, so it's somewhat more difficult to get a kid into the fold and to get him engaged in sports as much when they have so many other options of things to do. Good and bad, you know, there's benefits and detriments.
One question I have, and I kind of experienced it personally. Sometimes when a kid sees snow cover the ninth green in the fall, if he's playing golf, and sees home plate come out with snow in the spring, his grades go down. Is there any sort of tracking on these kids that don't play a sport in the wintertime, or?
I can't say formally, but we definitely notice a difference in certain kids, not all. I mean, but there are certain kids who you have concerns about when the season's over. How are their grades going to be? Which again is why we think that participation in athletics is so important. But there are certain kids that I know may not put quite as much time in their studies, you know, when basketball season's over, baseball season's over, or whatnot. We've never formally tracked that, but you know, I can say, you know, qualitatively that, you know, that definitely does occur on occasion.
You mentioned video games, which leads me into one other question I wanted to ask. We see over and over statistics now about how physical fitness has become more of a problem with our youth. Obesity, no one at this table, of course, we're all in prime shape. Obesity has become more of a problem, and to a large extent because people, the kids are indoors. We were outdoors playing games, they're indoors watching video. And I know the school committee struggles with what to have for breakfast. You want healthy foods, but you also want the kids to... Should the schools be placing more of an emphasis on fitness? Are we having enough phys ed classes? Should we be doing more?
Well, yeah, the difficulty lies in, well, a couple of thoughts come to mind. You know, we have very little control to a degree over what our meal options are. Those are really set by the FDA, the USDA.
What about the number of phys ed classes, Dan?
Number of phys ed classes, students have to take 1 year of phys ed now. It used to be that you could just meet it through athletic participation, but we've got an excellent phys ed teacher who does a great job. And we have, so now
so you're saying everyone has to take 1 year of phys ed?
Everyone has to take 1 year of phys ed, and then we have a lot of physical education electives too. We have team sports, outdoor activities, advanced fitness for those kids that really enjoy that. I think it's important to educate families as much as we can about physical activity and about not letting kids become sedentary. I think it's important to model that ourselves. You know, I think it's important for us to promote a healthy lifestyle and promote healthy choices in kids.
Can I interject really quick? You mentioned something, sedentary. The society as a whole is becoming that. And I think with the proliferation of digital media, we have our iPads, you walk around all around and you see people glued to their phones. Do you think that people would rather, students, kids, adults would rather sit around glued to their phone and experience everything from their couch than go out and go for a 6-mile jog?
You know, I think...
It's a hard question to answer.
Well, no, you know, I don't know the answer to that. I can't say that they would rather. I think it depends on the kid. I think, again, our job is to promote other activities. And you know, when you talk about that socialization piece, that, you know, not letting students experience relationships in just digital means. You know, some students and some kids are very comfortable to sit and use social media as their main, you know, interactions with other kids. So I think, so again, I'll use the YMCA as an example. They do a great job at getting kids out, getting kids involved, getting families involved. You know, at the school level, of course, between, you know, we just had our Wellness Day yesterday, our second annual Wellness Day. Focused on all aspects of personal wellness for kids. So they saw a presentation from the Penobscot Theater Organization on substance abuse, and then they had breakout sessions with 16 local businesses or individuals who came, donated their time, talking about social, emotional, nutrition, fitness, all those aspects of wellness. So I think if you can have a multi-tiered approach, as with anything, and have multiple people in places doing multiple things, you know, we can better educate kids about why it's important not to be overly sedentary.
Right.
Sounds like we're doing enough.
I don't know if you're ever doing enough. You know, that's the model I think you always have to have. Is I don't think you can ever say with anything, you know, with schools or whatnot, that we're doing enough. You say, okay, we might be doing okay at this. How do we get better? How do we do more? How do we be more effective, more efficient?
And I think you pointed out, we have all these options available, and we're still kind of in the beginning stages of seeing how that will affect.
Yeah.
And we'll probably see a couple of years down the road how engaged our students are, and would they rather be part of something physical or sit at home on their iPad.
Right.
So
We could use our imagination a little bit and imagine that Tom here was just appearing at the high school. And he last week was talking about his Super Bowl diet. So is there anything?
Well, I might ask for some ID to make sure he was.
Is there anything you could suggest where he could improve his physical fitness? You've been talking about this.
I would say if anybody wanted to improve their physical fitness, go see Coach Dion, because I'll tell you that guy is a guru.
Program
You got me.
That's great. Good news to talk to. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Good for you. We're going to segue, because we've been talking about local sports, into Ryan's piece on what's going on with our sports team.
All right, we'll start right off with a...
Chime in anytime you want, Dan.
Yeah,
I'll give it a shot.
Chime in. Dan's in a head of a high school that's having a heck of a basketball season this year on both teams. Both teams are pretty much at the top of the Western Class C Conference. The exception, as of today, the boys are second place behind Waynfleet as in heel points, but we still have the best record in the Western Conference. But this last week, we saw some basketball games. We'll start off with the Lady Seahawks. Lady Seahawks crossed paths with the Saints from St. Dominic Academy in Lewiston on January 29th. And Booth Bay went into the game with an impressive 13-2 record, looking to try to best the Saints that were 7-7 and coincidentally ranking 7th in the Western Class C. So we'll go right to the highlights from here. All right, right here we have the good get and go. Abby McClellan dishes it to, I got to do full screen here so I can look at it. Dishes it to Durgan, and then Durgan hits it back to Abby McClellan, who puts it up in for the easy hoop. And then in the second, we have Morgan Crocker feeds it into Ava Trena, kicks it out to Abby McClellan, who puts in the three and drains it. Next possession, we have Sarah Karen. And we'll look at this dish right down to Abby McClellan, who has a beautiful finish. And then in the next possession, it's swap places on the inbound. McClellan gets it out to Karen and hits a beautiful three right in the face of the St. Dominic opponent. On this possession, we have a beautiful look from Allison Crocker. And she feeds it into Ava Trena with a beautiful spin move. And if you thought that looked good, check out the next possession with Morgan Crocker. Gets the feed from Hannah Morley, and then leaves two St. Dominic Saints in the dust with that beautiful left-handed spin move.
You talk like a sportscaster, draining them, leaving them in the dust.
You pick it up once in a while. So this next highlight, I'm going to give a little context to. St. Dominic Saints had this prolific scorer by the name of Kelly Parmelo, and she has made an art form of flopping, like a lot of NBA players around. So she will, many times when you're driving up, she will make an art of just flopping and try to get the call. This particular game, the refs weren't having it, and they didn't call any of it. So here we have Morgan Crocker driving down the lane, and the only defense is Parmelo. Here comes Crocker. She flops, doesn't get the call, and then miraculously, Morgan Crocker gets the ball and then puts it in for two. And I think that justifies a replay. And we'll go back. Morgan Crocker comes in, hits Parmelo. She flops. It hits the rim and then comes down into the hands of Parmelo. And then it's like a fumble. All of a sudden, Morgan Crocker snatches it away from her and puts it up for the easy two. So with that said, that really annoyed Parmelo, who on the next possession came up the court and then watch this. Drives her shoulder right into Morgan Crocker. What does Morgan Crocker do? Flops. And then the offensive foul is called on Parmelo. So much to her chagrin, the Seahawks ran away with it. They won.
And justice prevailed.
Justice prevailed. This is coming from a judge, by the way. So Lady Seahawks won 51-36. They improved their record to 14-2. They've won the last straight 12 games since December 15th. Morgan Crocker was a high scorer with 14 points, and they remain at the top of the Western Class C Conference. And to do a couple season stats for you, there's a couple games left in the regular season. So far, the Lady Seahawks have averaged 51.4 points, but more importantly, here's some very impressive numbers. They average 15 steals a game, 4.8 blocks, with 2.1 coming from Alex Clark, and they dish out 10.4 assists per game.
Now, you're the local. This turnaround in the last 3 years for the girls has been amazing.
Huge. It's been huge. Yeah.
Do you think there's just a coincidence that this turnaround started about the time Welch got here? Or?
I don't think there's any coincidence to that whatsoever. That is had nothing to do with it. Those kids have worked very hard to get better.
That was a shameless attempt to butter up the principal.
You know what? Hey, I appreciate it, but as much as I'd love to take any amount of credit for our athletic success, I'm afraid I cannot.
Remember how far down that program was?
We had a few lean years,
terrific.
but you know, we all kind of for the last couple of years were waiting for this class to get to be seniors, and we always thought the end of class, once they got a little older, would contribute. We got some freshmen in there helping out, and yeah, they've got a great team doing a great job.
The coach must be doing a great job.
Coach is doing a wonderful job.
Tanner has a keen eye of watching what kids come up through the ranks, and he said, okay, I'm going to take over the girls team after Wolotsky left. And he's done a terrific job, showed him a whole new offense to work with, showed him a more analytical approach to the game, and it's been reflected in the record.
We got to get him on the show.
We do.
Yeah.
We do, before the tournaments at least.
Yeah.
And then going on to the Seahawks also played the St. Dominic Saints, and they trounced the Saints 74-36. Anthony DeMoro had a triple-double, and he scored 23 points, 12 assists, and 10 rebounds. And the only other player from Booth Bay to score in the double digits was John Hepburn, who had 18 points. And then basically, I don't have video for this because it came in late, but I promise throughout the next games in the tournament, we're going to be having live coverage and more video, so keep tuned. So after the first quarter, Booth Bay led 21-5, and at halftime it was 38-12, and they just took over the game. The rest is history, and they cruised to the 15th win of the season. They're now 15-1, and they're in second place in the heel points behind Waynfleet, but it's already been declared on the Mountain Valley Conference that they're going to be facing Dirigo, Booth Bay versus Dirigo in the Mountain Valley Conference Championships. That's going to be happening Monday, February 11th at 5:30 p.m. at the Augusta Civic Center. That's my report.
The Portland paper once a week has a high school basketball notebook where they name the players of the week statewide. 2 weeks ago, John Hepburn got named as one of the players. Yep. John got named as one of the state, named 5. And last week, DeMoro was recognized as one of the 5 to be cited as players of the week statewide.
And those 2 players have contributed a lot this year. I believe last time I looked at the numbers, Hepburn was the leading scorer, averaging 17.1 points per game. DeMoro's averaging 14.1. DeMoro's also the point guard, and he's an assist machine. He's impressive to watch.
Now he's a senior, is he not?
He is a senior.
And John's a sophomore. John's sophomore.
Yes.
One thing that did happen this week, I think it was Wednesday night or Thursday evening, Halldale upset Mountain Valley in double overtime, which is huge as they're Booth Bay's next opponent.
They are.
They moved Halldale, I think, up into 4th place in Western Maine.
You're talking about boys, right?
Boys.
Yeah.
And it was, from what I read, it was quite an overtime experience.
And speaking of Halldale, Booth Bay is going to be playing Halldale. Was it Monday night? Yes, Monday night. They're going to be traveling to Halldale February 4th and be playing them at 7 p.m. Then the girls play Halldale the next night, Tuesday.
Up there also?
Up there as well. And then they come home. The boys host Wiscasset for their last game. That'll be senior night, February 7th at 7. And then the girls will follow on Friday night at 7 p.m., February 8th. So we got a good last week of basketball here for the regular season.
We get good crowds out there, don't we?
We're going to have great crowds.
No doubt we will.
So if you don't know about it yet, we want Seahawk Nation to come up to the Porter Memorial Gymnasium because there's good ball games in store.
We also mentioned that the 2 wrestlers
That's right.
from the high school are going to state meet, am I right, Dan?
Going to the state meet, yeah. They participated in the Western Maine Conference Championships today. I haven't had a chance to see what the results are, but Antonio Malolo was a #1 seed in that, and Howie Carter was #4 seed. So I think wrestling is new to both these young men. They've done a fabulous job.
Your athletic director was a state champion wrestler in his high school
3 times. Matter of fact, he's up in Bucksport right now with the boys, helping them out and coaching them up.
Wow.
Yep. We're going to be, Booth Bay Register is going to be interviewing them Monday, and I'm going to be talking with them and seeing if they can come here on the show for next time.
Great. Okay, good. High school report, that's a good report. Thank you. So we know what's coming up.
I may be wrong at this, but I have a feeling that if the boys go in #1 and the girls go in #1 in West Maine C tournaments, this is the first time in history that has happened.
And you've been here for a while.
A few years, yeah. So I think, it's an attribute to Dan and the school and the Y and this whole community as we've been talking about this evening.
Not to me, but certainly to the community and the kids in the school, for sure.
Like Dan said, sports is cyclical, and about 2001 we had a state championship team, and went to kind of a lull, and then we came right back again. So I think we're back up on the full circle.
Kids deserve a tremendous amount of credit. They're the ones out there doing it, but we really do have a good set of coaches.
We have a great set of coaches. A lot of people may not realize, but Coach Pinkham is the second or third all-time winningest coach in the history of the state. well over 500 wins, and is as well respected an individual in the Maine basketball community as there is. And Coach Grover's done a great job. His knowledge of the game is pretty impressive, I'll tell you. He knows the game of basketball, that's for sure.
But as we alluded before, they don't just excel when it comes to W's and L's, but they're teaching the kids the right lessons.
Absolutely.
I officiate and get to know a lot of the athletic directors and officials in the state. When Pinkham's team leaves a road game, that locker room's left the way it's found. I mean, they do things right.
I have been so impressed with our kids in the time I've been here. They represent our school wonderfully in every sport. Regardless if they win or lose, I feel very appreciative of the fact that when I see my colleagues around the state, Booth Bay always has a good name and a good reputation, and it's indicative of the whole community.
And I can tell you from my knowledge that officials like to come here.
Well,
like to come here.
as you spoke about before, Dan, the Sportsmanship Award, it's always awarded before the gold ball.
That's right.
That puts us in its place as far as I'm concerned.
That's right.
That is something to hold high.
That's right. It's something to be proud of.
You can do feature time.
I do have a feature. Let's see.
I hope it.
2 cans of tuna. What's really? Oh, that's my shopping list. My wife gave that to me before I left.
Have you been to the store yet?
Yes, I have, but I think I gotta go back because I missed the tuna. As we were talking about the community here, and on the eve of the Super Bowl, I would just like to speak briefly about our affiliation here in the community with the NFL. The 3 trophies, Lombardi trophies, that have been presented to the New England Patriots have been presented by a summer resident of Squirrel Island. Just this little dot on the map. I think that's representative of what this community is. I believe it was the Seahawks team of 2001 football team. Mr. Tagliabue came into a place where I worked and I said, hey, the guys are going to the state championship tomorrow. Would you just as soon come to the practice this afternoon at 4 o'clock? He said, absolutely.
He was the commissioner of the NFL at the time.
Commissioner of the NFL.
For many years.
And I would beg to see how many high school football teams had the commissioner of the NFL to speak to him the night before the state championship.
I'd say it's a rather low number.
Yeah.
And they won the states.
They won the states. As we go back to the Lighted Up Committee, this community came together. I was on that committee. On the 4th of July, we were up on the Booth Bay Common at their celebration. We had $600 in the till at that time. By Labor Day, we had $98,000 to light up that field.
And that was all voluntary contributions.
Voluntary contributions.
And then there were, correct me if I'm wrong,
$25,000 of that came from the NFL.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And there were contributions, correct me if I'm wrong, in the form of labor and materials. And
Labor,
and so
materials. It was unbelievable to watch that happen. You know, different contractors would dig, 50 feet. Another contractor would dig another 50. They met in the middle, hopefully, and put the wires around the field. It was a community experience. Other things that have happened here is Tom Benson, the owner of the New Orleans Saints. His yacht was quite often at Brown Brothers. I had the pleasure of being invited aboard after the Lighted Up committee thing, and he was also influential in getting it done. And lastly, the owner of the Miami Dolphins is a frequent visitor here in the region. And there was one occasion where he asked permission of St. Andrew's Hospital to put his helicopter over there on the helipad, and in turn gave all of the nurses and workers there helicopter rides around the region.
What about all the money that's raised for Special Olympics because of the appearance of all the NFL players at that charity.
At the
golf-
charity
Yeah,
event, yeah.
yeah. NFL,
we get all pros,
NBL,
multiple.
everything.
And that goes a lot to the efforts of Special Olympics Maine and the local volunteers. It's Tom Erskine,
Yes.
Bonnie Erskine, Ken Marston. They help organize the classic, the Charities Classic every
Yeah.
September, and they raised an unprecedented 35 grand this year that went to Special Olympics. And a lot of people think it might be in peril because of the whole golf course situation, but I believe whoever buys the new golf course will support that.
And those guys, we've had them on our show before. We
Oh,
used
yeah.
to set up a table.
Liam Blackman and Brenda Blackman.
Blackman,
I hate to mention names because you always miss someone,
Yeah.
but we're a community. Everyone here, as far as I'm concerned, contributes.
They do a terrific job, but all those guys come in here, donate their time, and we do have one in, Otto Graham's son, Dewey, who lives nearby.
That is
and used to
someone-
live here and be the football coach. I
Yeah.
guess that helps too.
Yeah.
Did Otto Graham also spend some time up here for you?
Otto Graham, I have met him right in this very building. On the Special Olympics, he was downstairs signing autographs one day. Nice gentleman, and I think he's got a couple granddaughters
Dewey
still
was a
living there.
football coach, was he not?
Dewey was a football coach. He was chief of police in Bullpen for a while.
It's a good combination.
Otto's granddaughter's teaching at the school now.
Well, good report. Well, we've segued into the Super Bowl. I got to ask you guys a question. As the Super Bowl, is it now a football game or a social event?
Who's playing again?
Football season ended for me 2 weeks ago.
It's become a social event, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to go to one of these many parties, does anyone watch a game or care about them? It's become a national holiday. Have we lost sight of the original purpose, a championship football game?
No, not when the Pats are in it. The Pats are in it, I can tell you every eye's glued on it in my house. This year might be, the pizza may be a little more enticing in the game. We'll get through it.
Yeah. They've done a terrific job. As I said, the NFL's made it a national holiday, and they deserve credit for that.
Yeah, I think
Some
the
of the stories-
advertising agencies has also made it a national holiday.
Well,
one thing the good NFL's good at is making money, so.
The 30-second ads were going for $4 million a pop, and they had a waiting list. So I guess they're underpriced.
You gonna buy some airtime, Bob?
I couldn't buy a second.
We're sponsoring halftime.
Well, we can, your press credentials didn't come through to go to New Orleans, did they, Tom?
No. That's another thing on my grocery list. I thought the wife said the Super Bowl, but she said a couple cans of Super Tune.
Well, we may as well do it as long as we're here. As long as we're here, make your predictions. Who's going to win the football game? Now, you can't pick both teams like you did last time.
I will pick the Ravens by 7.
Baltimore. Dan?
San Fran by 10.
Baltimore, San Francisco?
Ravens.
2 Baltimores and 1 San Francisco. Now, I'm going to defer. I'm going to option out my pick. I have a member of my family who's more of an expert on football than I am. So can you, Riley, do you want to make your pick here? Now, what I've done, because he has a little bit of a speech problem, we've got 2 bowls here. One says Ravens and one says 49ers. And he's going to pick the winner, and we're going to see if he does a better job than these 3 experts I'm sitting with.
Has he been trained by Larry Brown?
If he gets it right, you'll
For anyone watching, this is Riley, and do you want me to hold him while you fill the bowls?
Yes.
Okay, Riley, you're on TV now.
Hey,
You behave
Riley.
yourself, Uncle Dan.
Our decorations fell in.
Oh, my goodness. So he's going to make his prediction now.
This is unprecedented, so if he makes it correct, then we're going to
I'll
go
say
to
that
Riley.
Letterman tries things like this. I don't know if it's going to work or not.
Hey, Tom, have you seen a family resemblance?
Honey,
Very
I'm
similar,
not
yes.
you know.
No, let him sit. Just let him sit.
Okay, is he ready to go? Can you put something in there? All right, now we're going to get a prediction here.
There's the Ravens.
If you get outstripped by a dog,
Oh.
Tom.
There's the 49ers.
All right.
Oh,
Now, Riley, who's going to win the game?
Tommy's holding it.
Riley, ready. There's three of them. Who's going to win the game?
Oh, wait.
Oh.
Might be a little camera shot.
Apparently it's going to be a tie. I don't know.
Oh, he's scared.
Can you prompt him, Jay? Hold one in each hand.
Come here.
Oh, looks like the Ravens.
Looks like he's going for the
Looks
Ravens.
like the Ravens.
Get me out of here, he says.
And the purple balloon stayed up, so that, obviously.
How much time we got to the left, Paul?
We're up over 35 minutes already. Let me just see here. We're 41 minutes.
Okay, well, to me, I guess they want things forwardly football. Talking about the national scene. Isn't the Theo thing got completely ridiculous?
Well, I read earlier today in the paper that we're talking about digital media yesterday, and people are in the social relationships and such, and it looks like he really was legitimately duped.
Yeah.
And I think the guy that was duping him
Mr. Tuisasopo
had a romantic infatuation with Tio, and it was all through the internet. And it's become a national headline. It's a very convoluted, bizarre case, but you know, these things happen, and we're in a whole new era. And
ask me about it.
I tell you, you know, it's mind-boggling the disconnect that some of these younger people have between you know, communicating digitally and face-to-face. I felt really bad for the young man from Notre Dame. Once it found out that, you know, we found out that he didn't have any involvement, I mean, to have this plastered all over the newspapers and the media for weeks and weeks, it's really unfortunate.
Well, now it turns out that it was Mr. Tuisasopo, the man that was imitating a girl's voice. That's what they tell us now.
well, you'd have when they would discuss. I guess when they would talk on the phone, you'd have his cousin, I think, be the voice.
He said he was the voice.
I think it was both, actually. I heard both. I heard both, yeah.
And that he had a romantic attachment to Tio, and
Do you think this will haunt him the rest of his life, or do you think like everything kind of gets lost in the mist of time?
I think it depends on how good his pro career is.
Right.
You know, hey, if you want to, with professional athletes, if they're successful, the national media and national spectators have been very willing to have a short-term memory. So I don't think it should be something awesome. I think he was a victim here.
well, the next question, of course, is it going to affect his draft status, and that translates into money. I think one of the things being held against him is after the hoax was exposed, he nonetheless was a little bit less than truthful in a couple of interviews after that. So is it going to hurt him? His draft status? I don't know. I know that the football league, they've got millions of dollars invested in these guys, and they do a pretty good job of finding out everything they can about them. Does this expose a character weakness?
I think this, as I said a week ago, this is just technology's answer to the Inquirer. You know, you had to pay 25 cents 25 years ago to read this stuff. It will be forgotten next week, and we'll move on. Something else.
To the next national headline.
Yeah, something else will come up. You know.
I guess the other big, they look for, they've got 2 weeks to look for things to fill newspaper columns with during this whole football build-up. And the other thing, of course, has been the big thing with head injuries and concussions and what's been done to prevent them. There are now something like 4,000 former players suing the National Football League, alleging permanent injuries that they weren't warned of. And the Players Association just donated $100 million to Harvard to study brain injuries and long-term effects of trauma which occurred during football games. So there's a new emphasis on this now. I changed the game, might not, I don't know. But those are the big stories for pro football. But I don't know about you guys, but the end of the game tomorrow means that it's time for baseball season. In 10 days, pitchers and catchers report for spring training. Now, Tom, you're a big, matter of fact, I think you're in your answering machine at home when I call your house or something about the Red Sox.
Something about the winter home of the Boston Red Sox or something like that.
Are you enthusiastic about this season?
For the Red Sox, not really. I haven't seen any moves they've made this winter that I just hope a couple of the catchers they've acquired can pitch.
Well, now I'm gonna differ with you. They have picked up 8 free agents, all of whom have had some success at the major league level. And they didn't give up any of them. I just made a list. They picked up Ryan Dempster, a regular starter, a good relief pitcher named O'Hara, 2 first basemen, 1 left-hand hitter, 1 right-hand hitter, Napoli and Overby they picked up the other day. Drew's a shortstop, 2 pretty good outfielders, Victorino and Gomes. And they didn't give up anybody for any of these people. They lost Ross and another catcher, David Ross.
Maybe they should have given up a few from last year.
I'll give you that, man.
Well, this is going to open up some space. And the one person we did get by a trade, as opposed to free agency, was Hanrahan, the relief pitcher from Pittsburgh. A proven successful relief pitcher. I think they've helped themselves. And I'm not so sure that the other teams in their division have. The Yankees, Baltimore, Toronto has, but you've got the 2 bottom teams who have improved themselves, and Tampa Bay, New York, Baltimore, not so much.
Yeah, they were already, that's such a tough division, I gotta tell you. I don't think those pickups are gonna equate to an American East title. I think they're gonna struggle.
I think Baltimore this year will do what they didn't do last year. They're a young team, they're fun to watch, they enjoy the game.
Well, I'm going to play devil's advocate.
There.
They won something like 30 one-run ball games. The record was something like 30 and 12 in one-run ball games. They were all close ball games, and they really haven't done anything to help themselves very much.
You know, speaking of baseball, I'll make a prediction for you. I've been saying this every year for the last 20. This will be the year that the Cubs end the 104-year curse now. I think it was 1909. It was the last year.
1908. I was going to bring it up. 1908. Anybody can have a bad century.
That's right. That's right.
How did a kid from northeastern Maine end up a Cubs fan?
Limited TV options. When I was about 12 years old, we got cable for the first time, which cable was channels 2 through 13. I think they tacked a dish or something onto one of the many trees around us. And so it was either WGN out of Chicago or TBS out of Atlanta. So my next door neighbor Luke became a Braves fan, and I became a Cubs fan. It was 1989, and they had a great year that year. Won the division with Rick Sutcliffe and Mark Grace and Ryan Sandberg. So that was a great team. And then the last year since 1989, I've been pretty tough as a Cubs fan, especially with Moises Alou and the game against the Marlins and I remember watching that, and I still get nightmares and cold sweats once in a while. This is the year, I got a feeling.
I personally think it was a big mistake to put up lights in Wrigley Field. That's great. Every game at 1:30.
I've never been to Wrigley, that's on the bucket list.
Oh, you got to do it.
That's on the bucket list.
Got to do it. One other story on the national scene that came out this week, and I'm going to go back to football and hopscotching. In one of the commissioner's press conference, he said that it was completely unacceptable that there were 15 new GMs and coaches named this year, and none of them were minorities. Now there is the so-called Rooney Rule that if there's a GM or coach's opening, a minority candidate has to be interviewed, and I'm sure the rule was adhered to. But the fact of the matter is that of 15 new hires, none of them were minorities, and he finds that unacceptable, which leads me to this question. Can you legislate or make rules with regard to people's attitude toward diversity?
Well, I think the question to ask, and I'm not going to answer it, is not can you. I think you can legislate almost anything. But
well, that's what they've done by having a rule with regard to the interviews.
I think the way to do it is to make the Rooney Rule in effect for assistant coaches and coordinators and things like that, because if you look at a lot of the new hires, they were brought up as from being a coordinator or an assistant coach to the head coaching level, so that tells me that they need to give more, pay more attention to making sure there's equal opportunity at the assistant level as well.
Well, now, about 10 years ago, the NFL did start a policy of having training camps for former players who wanted to go into coaching who were minorities. I don't know if that's been successful or not, but it just strikes me that you can't legislate morality, for lack of a better word.
You're looking at me for
You're a newspaper man, you better have a view on that.
Affirmative action, basically, is what you're saying.
I'm saying here we have a rule in effect, and if you really want to give equal chances to minorities and you really consider diversity a virtue, which I think as a society we probably do, this legislation of you must interview doesn't seem to be working.
I haven't followed it, and I'd like to see the results, but I think everybody should have a chance to try it out at least. So,
Everybody should have a chance to succeed.
yeah.
Well, the fact is, I mean, among the players in both pro basketball and pro football, we have a sizable percentage who are minorities, and you would think that would translate into coaching opportunities, GM opportunities, and so forth, but it doesn't seem to be happening.
Pro sports are business, and if I was running a business, the first thing I would look at is ability. Why do we have to legislate the color of your skin? If you're able to do the job, then you get the job.
But is it working that way, Tom?
It probably isn't.
This is just for baseball you're talking about, right?
No, I'm talking about football.
This is football
I'm
too?
talking about the National Football League.
Oh, okay. Because in basketball, a lot of the coaches are former NBA players, and a lot of them are minorities.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it all depends on the
basketball, we
sport.
really have, the percentage of NBA players who are minorities must be close to 75–80%. We just got all
I
the
would
stars.
guess, I'm really not sure.
Yeah.
I would guess.
But in football too, this seems not to be working. But somebody can tell in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
You okay?
I'm holding up.
Are you
all right.
okay?
All right.
Toughed it out?
Done. Thank you very much for having me. Good
So we'll
times.
look forward to next week. We got to mark down the guests we want in the future. We'd like to get those 2 wrestlers if we could.
We'll try to get the next
That'd be
next
great.
week. Get those 2 wrestlers. I'd like to see some of the Lady Seahawk captains on here, and maybe DeMoro and Hepburn before the tournament action comes in. And
We got to get Coach Grover.
Gotta get Coach Grover.
Let me suggest too, we've got a very successful Nordic ski program going on at the school too.
That's right.
Nick Scott is our coach, does a wonderful job. We have almost 30 students, which is over 10% of our student population on the Nordic ski team. Had a very good cheering season as well. Coach Tilton did a great job with those young ladies, raised their composite score from the MVC to the Western Maine Championship by 30 points, which is a really, really nice job. They fell just short of making it to the state competition, but they did a great job too. So a lot of great things going on at Woodbury Region High School.
Anytime you want to come back.
All right, sounds
And
great.
we'll book you definitely for the Cubs World Series week.
I will be here. I will be here
But any other
October
time too.
2013. Mark it.
See you next week.
See ya.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you.